Not too long ago, we had Vladimir Putin come to the United Nations, to the General Assembly, and gave a passionate speech about the need of Russia to get involved in the fight against ISIS, condemning the US and the Western position and involvement in the region and the responsibility on the instability in the Middle East. Well, today, he gained approval from Russia's parliament to start airstrikes on Syria. And this is very, very important. This is the biggest military approval that they had in many, many years. And the last time they did it, we had this crisis on Crimea, we had the crisis on Ukraine, and the question that arises is, can we trust Putin that he's doing what he says he's going to do? And the facts that we're getting from the people in Syria, the local activists and the local citizens are saying that this is far from the truth, that the locations of these airstrikes are actually far west from any ISIS stronghold, and they do coincide. It is a region is called Homs, and this is a stronghold of Jaish al-Fatah, one of the biggest rebel coalitions. Yes, granted, they are linked to an Al-Qaeda faction called Jabhat al-Nusra, but also with al-Sham, that is one of the biggest, most popular rebel groups that is supported by the West, by Turkey and by Qatar, and it's very suspicious that this is the same area that the Assad regime today did a major bombing strike on that province. So it's hard to believe that Putin is going to do the right thing, that he's going to do what he says, when the first attack that his military officially unleashes is on areas that are strongholds for the rebels against the Assad regime.
Right, which on paper looks very shady, but as Americans who lead this coalition, who's fighting ISIS, who are we to sit here and get on other people's cases on shady airstrikes? I think we lead the world in shady airstrikes where you don't see numbers of civilians dead. The list goes on. I can get into that, but we're not. I'm gonna focus on Putin here. Again, I think trust is very important. That we trust that Putin is doing what he's actually saying he's doing, and not targeting civilians, not targeting rebels, and not solely doing this just to back Assad. Now, that would be very bad. And I can see why Putin is quick to do this. He feels there's a real need, because while the US and the coalition forces are deciding what to do, we don't want to work with Assad because we know that that's something that we definitely would never do, because we're also stubborn. While we're deciding these things, people are dying. And we have someone like Putin who comes in and is like, I'm just going to do this, screw everybody, I'm doing what I want. I'm not asking the US or anyone for permission. We're doing this, whether you think I'm helping Assad or not. He doesn't seem to really give a shit, because he's under heavy sanctions from the West, and he has been ever since the annexation of Crimea. So he's doing things that the Americans don't want to do. More power in the air, as well as even discussing whether it's boots on the ground isn't actually an option. So he's doing the dirty work that a lot of the West doesn't want to do, and that could, in a way, be seen as a way to have sanctions lifted in the near future. So I think it's kind of a win-win. In both ways, and I think it could be seen as a good thing. But then again, it just comes down to trust. Can we trust Putin is actually doing what he says he's doing?
Well, the very first action that he took hints that we may not be able to trust him. Maybe we can pull up the map that is very clear, and we have, came just today from an Institute of War. We see the region of Homs, and all the yellow, strong, solid yellow areas are those strongholds for the rebels. And the red asterisks are the bombings that Russian military took today. And it's clear that none of them are the gray areas that are traditionally ISIS strongholds. They're far away from it, but they do coincide with the areas that the rebels have been advancing the fastest and gaining territory the fastest. It's said that actually Assad made a communication directly to Putin saying, these gains are unsustainable for our military, we need support, and that's how Russia got involved so quickly, because at the same time Russia needs Syria because they have a very specific geopolitical interest in the region, because that's the only access to the Mediterranean. So for Russia, it's very important to be in control of, if Assad stays in power, or whoever comes after Assad works with them so they can control the area, because that's pretty much their only access to the Middle East. So I think there's a lot of interest, but at the same time, like you mentioned, Russia, their domestic situation is not bountiful for them to go out and sustain an open-ended war in Syria. I think they have plummeting oil prices. Yeah. Domestically, they have a lot of problems. I don't see this as something that Putin thinks that he's going to be for years in this situation. I think it's a short-term solution that he saw as an opportunity also to make him a power player in one of the main problems, both ISIS-related and the refugee crisis. I think those are two things that, at the same time, when you bomb these territories with a lot of civilians, you are also creating the displacement. All these refugees, 7 million of internally displaced Syrians on top of the 4 million or more that are around Europe and the world. It's a lot of people displaced by bombing and the geopolitical chess game that these leaders play. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you haven't, please subscribe to the Lib TV.